The Jewish people respond to death with 3 words of blessing, with which you're all familiar. We'll begin our service with the wisdom of our tradition. So please join me in saying B'li Shem u'Malchut, the bracha on hearing the sad tidings of Shelley's demise. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. LeDavid, Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai mi yagur be'ohalecha, mi yishkon behar kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo, lo ragal al leshono, v'lo asa l're'ehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivze be'inav nim'as, ve'et yir'e Adonai yechabed, nishba' lehara v'lo yamir, kaspo lo natan beneshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach, ose elle lo yimot le'olam. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived and all who ever will be. Cry for the dead, hide not your grief, said Ben Sira. Do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden. Again, all this is Ben Sira. Nor be preoccupied with what is beyond, for we have been shown more than we can comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good reputation endures forever. From Eov. Lama yiten la'amel or. Why does God give light to those who suffer? V'chayim lemarei nafesh. Why does God give life to those who find it bitter? Hamechakim la'maved ve'enenu vayachperuhu mimatmonim. Those who long for death which does not come, those who seek it more eagerly than treasure. Hasmechim eligil yasisu ki yimtzeu kaver. Who would rejoice to be covered over at last? Who would be glad to reach the grave? Legever asher darko nistara vayasech Eloah ba'ado. Why does God continue to guide those who have lost their way? I want to invite a few people to speak about Chaya Sarah bat Shmuel ve'Esther, Shelley Birkner. The first is a friend, ידידה ותיקה, היא מקבץ של עברית ואנגלית היום. That's Bobby Blumenthal Silberklang, ידידה ותיקה של שלי ושל שרה. בבקשה.
I first met Shelley in 1979. When I came to study social work at the University of Chicago. She was living in Hyde Park with Cheryl and finishing her master's in library science. She was an active member of the egalitarian upstairs minyan at the Hillel and a close friend of the rabbi, Danny Leifer, who I worked with and became close with also. We had many Shabbat meals together, and we spent a lot of time together. Shelley was very warm and welcoming to those of us like me and Alicia, who's also here, who came to U of C even for a short time. Our friendship has lasted all these years, and who would have thought that we'd all end up in Israel? Shelley wasn't well when I met her. She would have small seizures when she wouldn't be able to speak for seconds or a minute. But only a few years later was she diagnosed with a brain tumor. She didn't let any of this stop her. She finished her master's successfully and worked as a librarian at a research library at the university and later in a law firm. She continued to work despite her growing disabilities. All those around her admired her strength and determination not to let her illness defeat her. Shelley remained a devoted friend to me and later to all my family. Even after her first surgery, she came to David and my wedding in Israel in 1984 and continued to make numerous trips to Israel. She came in 1989 with Cheryl in what she thought, would be a last trip in the midst of undergoing chemotherapy. That trip was shortly before her mother died of cancer. She made the brave decision that she would stop having chemotherapy shortly after that, but underwent 2 more operations, the last being in 1993, when I went to visit her in the hospital in Chicago. She came to Israel again in 1996 and for our daughter's bat mitzvah in 1998. She always gave the impression that nothing could stop her. Shelley moved to Cleveland to be close to Cheryl, Eric, and the girls, and we visited her there in 2007. She maintained her independence as much as possible. Shortly after that visit, Shelley made Aliyah, again to be near Cheryl and to establish her life in Israel. She lived with Cheryl and her family for 2 years until her condition required more care than they could give her at home. Eric, Esther, and Eliza took an active role in taking care of Shelley, which they did without making it seem like a burden. Cheryl continued to be by her side at the French hospital as much as she could in her busy schedule, taking her out to eat, to entertainment and smachot like my children's weddings, despite the logistic issues involved. Eric developed great skill in maneuvering the wheelchair, even over rough terrain. Cheryl's devotion and loving care to Shelley is and was always amazing. And Eric, Esther, and Eliza showed just as much devotion, which is definitely not a given or to be taken for granted. Over the years, I have learned much from Shelley and all of them about what it means to cope and face severe illness with great determination not to give in or give up. By all medical standards, Shelley should have died of her disease many years ago. In fact, there were numerous times that she was told she would not survive. She made herself a medical miracle. Living with that knowledge and not giving up is an amazing feat, showing incredible resolve and willpower. Even though she has died at the age of 58, which these days is quite young, she has lived a full Jewish life, even reaching Israel, which was so important to her. She was surrounded by family and friends who loved her and learned from her and will keep those great life lessons with them.
I wouldn't have expected to hear, I have learned much from Shelley about what it means to cope and face severe illness with great determination, not to give in or give up, from somebody whose profession for decades has been a medical social worker in a hospital. That's something. אני רוצה להזמין את הרב קלמן וויניק, גם הוא ידיד ותיק של המשפחה, להגיד כמה דברים.
There are so many things that can separate us in this world. And that's why when we find those things which hold us together, it's so important for us to grasp them and savor them. I've had the pleasure and the honor of knowing Cheryl, and through Cheryl, Shelley, and Eric, and Esther, and Eliza for almost 30 years. And there's been just beautiful things which have bound us. It's strange, I'm here because my wedding was a couple of days ago, and Cheryl was part of that, making sure things were set up, and my Shabbat Chatan was at her house. And we've been through the ups and the downs in her life and in my life from medical issues for her or for me or for family members to the simcha, to the smachot, to watching baseball games in the middle and me allowing her to root for the wrong team. But it's love that and real depth that unite us as much deeper than any of the individual events that we go through or have gone through or will go through. There's such a richness to Cheryl and to Shelley that all those types of events and more just seem right. I'm not an accountant, but the notion of Ezehu Ashir, Somech Bechelko, makes me feel that there's such a richness to your family. The way that Shelley and you and Shelley and you and Shelley with others have just been open and sincere and real and amiti. There's a holiness to that. A holiness that I've experienced and learned from Cheryl. She was in the educators program, I was in the rabbinic program, it didn't matter. Shelley was a librarian, it didn't matter. What I saw over and over and over again was this beautiful woman seeking Torah and seeking Hashem in her life and doing it in a way that it connected her with other people. That's the key. Some people are wonderful friends and human beings. Some people are very devout and religious. It's a small minority in any movement, which is a ridiculous concept for us as human beings. It's a very precious gift when people can be loving, kind, friendly, fun, thoughtful, intelligent, pious people and express it in the way that's right for them, even if that's different than the way that's right for others, knowing that we're all trying to serve somebody bigger than ourselves. And to that extent, there's such richness in this room today. There's such connection in this room today, like there has been for 30 years that I've known you, a few more that I think you knew Shelley, and many more years, that when we have that type of a richness, it can't be taken away by any one hospital visit, by any one day, on any one mountain. It's those things which are eternal will continue to be with us. If I didn't think of something, I didn't know what was happening over Shabbat. I was in my own little world. But Shabbat, when Shelley passed from us in this world, was the 199th day of this year. If you start counting Rosh Hashanah, day 1, second day, day 2, Yom Kippur, day 10. Just standing here, I was just thinking of how the most important things are how we lovingly connect what's there with what's here. I don't say I can't talk to you because you're standing there. I can't talk to Eric because he's outside. When we love each other, we span those gaps. 199 spells out Hashem ba'olam hazeh v'haba ba'ahava. God is in this world and the next world if we do things with love. May Shelley have no more pain. You worried so much about how to care for her. And by the way, when I spoke with Shelley, the times that I was with you and the times I came and found her when I was not with you, she was equally concerned about your well-being. And we are concerned about your well-being. May Shelley have no more worries in this world. May there be the peace that she deserves, the richness that she deserves, that she's earned, that she's made for herself and for you by being wonderful, both of you, humble, loving, simple people, that the external things Didn't really matter. It was the internal things that you did so gracefully. May she be well cared for. May you and your family receive our love, because it's Megia Lach. And may both of you know that the connection that you have always had, may it still be there as Hashem blesses both of you from whatever physical place you may be. May the love that you've had be connected with love that always will be from us, from you and each other, from Hashem, that we should go from this place forward with healing and with strength and meet up again at other occasions, not like this one, but with the same kind of connection.
יש עוד שניים, שלושה שידעו. קצר. אני אקצר, מבקש. עליזה? מזמור לזכר הדודה שלה. זה יהיה קצר, זה מזמור.
מזמור לדוד אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנאות דשא ירביצני עמי מנוחות ינעלנו. נפשי ישורב ינחנו במגל שדק למען שמו. גם שילך בגיא שממוות לא יראה רע כי את העמדי. שבתך מתנתך המה ינכם מורי. תערוך לפניו שולחן נגד שורי, תשננת בשמן ראשי קושי רבייה. אחתו וחסד יורדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
יישר כוחך. אסתר? כמה מילים לזכר הדודה.
Aunt Shelley, I knew it wouldn't be the cancer. You were too stubborn for that. And they'd been predicting for years that the cancer would kill you since they'd found it. And you proved them wrong every single time. So it was bound to be something else. I never thought I'd be talking to you here, let alone now. But you died as you lived, with your sister by your side, taking care of you like she promised your parents. And when I go back home to Chicago, I will go to Papa and Grandma's grave and I will tell them that she took care of you. And she took care of you better than anyone ever could. And now it's their turn again. I was at, right before, on Shabbat, I was at a goodbye party for me with our family in Chicago. I talked to your brother, my Uncle Larry, in the morning, and he said, it will be a goodbye party for Aunt Shelley too. And I can't imagine a way that I would rather have spent that day than surrounded by the family. Thank you for everything that you've given me over the years, all the English muffins and introducing me to Harry Potter. I miss you, and I love you.
As you can imagine, I've been thinking about what I would say on this occasion for a long time. What I thought about saying over the years changed a bit, but the pain and the grief and the sorrow have not changed. Surprisingly, though, when Shelley took her last breath on Shabbat and I began to think of what I would say today, I couldn't remember anything I had thought of before. My mind was empty. Then I read the Parsha Shmini, and I found the words, after Aaron hears of the death of his sons. It says, V'yidom Aharon. Aaron was silent. Lots of interpretations over the years have wondered why Aaron was silent. I don't know about Aaron, but I was silent, because Shelley's death, not totally unexpected, was nonetheless overwhelming, and there were no words to express the grief and the pain and the deep loss. But I will talk about Shelley today. Most people here, and probably most of the people watching from the U.S., don't remember Shelley from before her illness, don't know the shortstop or the bridge player. She was determined and competitive and fun-loving. But what anyone who spent any time with Shelley, even when she was already experiencing the results of the tumor, what anyone does remember was her enthusiasm for theater, for opera, traveling, the upstairs minion at the University of Chicago, celebrating the Chagim, and above all else, the White Sox. Actually, not above all else. Above all else, she loved her family and her friends. She enjoyed talking, being with people, celebrating. I have many stories to tell about Shelley, her generosity, her curiosity, her eagerness to learn. I remember friends in high school marveling how, after spending a day in classes, usually at least half of them together, Shelley and I would sit at an after-school basketball game or some other event, and she and I would talk nonstop. There was always so much to tell her. I'll save some of those stories for another time. The brain tumor took all of that away. That's what most of you know about Shelley, and even for me and my brothers, Larry and Alan, that's been the reality of Shelley's last 30 years. And that was so unfair. Shelley was cheated not only of so much enjoyment of life, but also of the opportunity to contribute to life. She would have been great. Despite her pain and her frustration, she was almost always cheerful. Think what she could have been without the tumor, which impaired and limited her. I want to publicly thank family and friends who were always there for Shelley when I couldn't be. When she had a round of 5 days a week radiation treatments for a period of several weeks, I spent a week taking her there and back, but then I needed to return to New York. I wasn't sure my parents would be able to handle the stress of taking her daily, nor was I sure Shelley would like that. So I asked our Hyde Park friends to volunteer for a day. I filled the schedule quickly. I've spoken to cousins and friends in the last couple of days with tears and good memories. Of course, the staff and volunteers at the French hospital here treated her so well, especially Rachel, who Shelley loved to see. She was blessed with your care and your consideration. Eric, Esther, and Eliza, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you did for her and for me. You never questioned when I jumped up in the evening remembering that I hadn't yet been to see Shelley and I raced off to see her. You never complained when I didn't have time to make dinner because I wanted to spend time with Shelley. You read to her, you played games with her, talked to her, helped push her wheelchair, and picked her up when she fell, sat with her after a seizure. It wasn't always easy, but I so appreciated it. Your pain and your sadness when I told you the news means a lot to me. Our brother Larry and our nephew Irving also spent unprecedented time helping Shelley when she was in Chicago. She was grateful. And finally, to Shelley, I loved the games we played as children, the giggles and the struggles we shared as teenagers, including when we switched places, the theater and the travel as adults. There was so much more I wanted to do, planned to do, hoped to do. I am sorry for what we will both miss. You and I have been side by side our whole lives, and I do treasure all of that. But now I go on without your physical presence. I promise that your memory and our stories will go on for as long as I live. Shelley and I loved the book To Kill a Mockingbird. When we were in 7th grade, we memorized much of it. One of the parts I still remember is, courage isn't a man with a gun in his hand. Courage is knowing your beat before you've begun, but beginning anyway. Shelley was beat a long time ago, but she never stopped. She never gave in.
עבור כולנו החיים הם סדרה של ציפיות, של שאיפות, ולהבדיל גם באמת לומר של רגשי חרדה מן העתיד לבוא. רובנו, מרבית בני אדם, לפחות במשך כמה עשרות שנים, זוכים למאזן חיובי בין ציפיות ושאיפות לבין חרדה ואימה. אם בצדק ואם לאו, אנחנו מתכננים הישגים, שמחות, חגיגות. אנחנו חותרים להתקדמות מקצועית וחומרית, להרחבת מעגל המשפחה והידידים. האופק שלנו, לפחות בדמיוננו, מתרחב ככל שאנחנו חיים, עד לרגע בו אנחנו מבינים שכוחותינו המחודדים נעשים כהים, אפשרויותינו מצטמצמות, עצמאותנו נכנעת לפני תלותנו באחרים. זה דרכו של אדם. וחוכמה רבה יש בהכרת העובדה הזאת, למנות ימינו כן הודה ונביא לבב חוכמה. פה ושם אנחנו נתקלים בבני אדם העוברים את התהליך הזה במקוצר, בטווח זמן מואץ. חולי הפרוג'ריה למשל, המזדקנים פיזית בשנות הנעורים והמגיעים לזקנה ולשיבה בגיל ההתבגרות. שלי חוותה כך את החיים שלה, עקומה מהירה יחסית, המחלה שלה העבירה אותה מהר מאוד מן ההישגים למוגבלויות, מן העצמאות לתלות, ואפשר לשער גם מן השאיפה והציפייה לחרדה ולאימה. וכמו איזו סבתא, היא לימדה אותנו כיצד עוברים את המעבר הזה. שלב שלב, היא עברה כל עוד הייתה יכולה. היא למדה די מהר לבקש עזרה, בהתחלה בדברים יומיומיים, קניות, ארוחות, הסעות, ואחר כך בדברים עוד יותר יומיומיים, לזוז ממקום למקום, להתקלח, לאכול. וכמו שאנחנו לומדים מן הזקנים האהובים עלינו כיצד לבקש עזרה, אנחנו לומדים מן העונים על הבקשות כיצד לתת. כתוב בספר משלי, בכל עת אוהב הרע, ואח לצרה ייוולד. במילים של קינג ג'יימס, a friend loves at all times, but a brother is born for adversity, or a sister. בשנים האחרונות, כשאתם פה בירושלים, שרל, אריק, אסתר, עד לאחרונה, אליזה, כולנו למדנו מכם מה זה לתת תמיכה ומזור בשפע, יום יום, במיליון דברים קטנים וגדולים, עד לפרט האחרון ועד לרגע האחרון, והכל באהבה. לא מכורח החיוב, אלא מתוך רצון המבוסס על אהבה. לא חמלה מתנשאת, אלא הזדהות עם השאיפות המקוטעות של אחותך. התקוות שנעשו כאבק וכעפר הארץ. שרל, את מתחילה היום לקיים סדרה כמעט אחרונה של מעשה מתן וחסד עבור אחותך. בימי השבעה, בימי ה30 שיקוצרו בגלל החג, גם המשמי שובה. ואכן במשך השנה בה את מתכוונת, אנחנו יודעים להגיד קדיש על אחותך. וברור לכולנו שכל זה ייעשה מתוך אהבה ורעות. שלי הראתה לנו כיצד להתמודד עם מה שמצפה לכולנו. אתם, שרל, אריק בעיקר, בשנים האחרונות, מראים לנו כיצד לעזור זה לזה. לתת ולתמוך ובעיקר לאהוב. על שני ההיבטים האלה אנחנו מודים גם לשלי וגם לכם. אדוני נתן, אדוני לקח, יהי שם אדוני מבורך. אנחנו נגיד כאן קדיש ונמשיך בדרך. קדיש לא על הקבורה, קדיש רגיל. Sorry, I need to give you regular קדיש. start if you want.
Okay, Vice Member will help me. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ועמד דברה חיותי ויוניחי חיותי.
חיותי וחייכון ונכון.
וחייכון
וחיי דכל בית ישראל
ועגלה
ועגלה.
בזמן קריב ואמרו.
אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך ועולם לעלמי עלמיה.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך מעלמיה.
יתברך.
וישתבח ויתפאר ויתהלל.
נעשה ותודה ויתהלל.
ויתהלל. שמי דקדושה ויתהלל. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
אמן, יישר כוח. טוב. טוב רבותיי, מסע הלוויה, אנחנו יורדים לחלקה.
למטה נקרא חלקת תלפיות. אז כולם עם המכוניות מדליקים אורות בשיירה אחרי אותו חברה קדישה. כולנו ביחד ניתן כבוד לאמא היקרה. בבקשה, 4 בחורים. והנה אדוני אלינו עלינו, ומעשי ידינו ונעלינו, ומעשי ידינו ונעלינו. יושב בסתר עליון.
למעלה.
יפול מצידך 1000 ורבבה מימיניך, אליך לא ייגש, רק בעיניך תמיד, ושמדומת רשעים תראה. כי אתה אדוני מחסי עליון שמחתך, ותאונה אליך רעה ונגע לא יקרב באוהליך. כי מלאכיו יחברך לשמורך בכל דרכיך, על כפיים יישאונך פן תגוף באבן רגליך, על שחל ופתן תדרוך תרמוס.
בבקשה, עוד בחורים, עוד בחורים.
תחכה, שנתקדם.
כן, אבל אנחנו... בזמן שלה...
שיר למעלות אשא עיני אל ההרים מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומריך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומריך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. אנחנו ממשיכים בקיום מצוות לוויית המת וגם מצוות הקבורה.
כן, 4, עוד פעם.
אנחנו פעם מזמינים 4 או יותר.
כן,
אפשר לעשות את
מפה. גבוה, גבוה הרבה. גבוה. אנא לך, גדולת ימינך תתיר סררה. אתם הפוך, אתם קדימה. תחזיר יד, ככה.
על מקומה תבוא בשלום. חיה, שרה בת, שמואל ואסתר. תורה תדע לנפיס.
גבוה, גבוה.
זהו, עכשיו נשלח לשים בו. אסור לקיים פועלו בכל דרכיו משפט אל אמונה ואין עוול צדיק וישר הוא. הצור תמיד בכל תורה, מי יאמר לו מה תפארת השליט, ומטה ומה העניק וחיי, מוריד שאול חיי. ברוך הוא, כי אמת דינו, ושוטט הכל באמינו, משלם לאדם חשבונו ודינו. לשמו הודיה ידינו. ידענו אדוני כי צדק משפטיך תצלח ותזכה בשופטיך ואין מהרהר תוכל לדעת שופטיך צדיק אתה אדוני וישר משפטיך. The rock is what is perfect and all his ways are just, the faithful God never false, true, and upright is the soul of all your life, of all life is in your hand, God. Your might is filled with justice. Have mercy on the remnant of your flock, and Satan, the destroying angels, stay in your hand. Wondrous in purpose, mighty indeed, you see all the ways of mortals, giving each according to his ways and the fruits of his deeds. Proclaim that Adonai is just, he is my rock, in whom there is no flaw. Adonai has given, and Adonai has taken. Praised be the name of Adonai. God being merciful grants atonement for sin and does not destroy. Time and again, God restrains wrath and refuses to let rage be all-consuming. There's no way to define God. Every attempt to further our understanding of God is an exercise in poetic language. When we need leadership, we call to Malkeinu. If we need guidance, we address Avinu Shebashamayim. Should the marvels of the universe fill us with awe, we sense God's Shekhinah. And when we need strength, as we all do today, we call to Hatsur, the rock, an image of God as the one who is stable, strong, impenetrable, and unbreakable. As skyscrapers are built on firm foundations, yet must sway in the wind to survive. Anyone from Chicago knows that. We can weather any storm, for Hatsur, God our rock, will be our support. וישוב העפר על הארץ כשהיה והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. אל מענה רחמים. אל מענה רחמים. תהופן במרומים. ונצל מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי שכינה מעלות קדושים קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מסעירים נשמד חיה שרה בת שמו ואסתר שלך לעולמה בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתה ענה בעל הרחמים חסדירה בסתר כנפך לעולמים ותצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום המשכבה ונאמר
ויתקדש שמי רבה, יעמד יברח ירצה וימליך מלכותה בחייכון ובימיכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב וימרום.
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ועמל מיה.
ויתקדש שמי רבה בעמד די הוא עתיד להתחדתה ולהחיה מיתיה ולהסקה יתכון לחיי עלמה ולמבנה קלטה די ירושלים ולשכללה החלי בגבה ולמחר פלחנה מוכרעה מן ארעה ולעטבה פלחנה די שמיה לעטרי והמליך בקודשה, בריחו, במלכותי, ויקרא בחייכם ובימיכם, בחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן.
שמי רבה ומבורך, לעולם ומאיה.
שמי רבה ומבורך, לעולם ומאיה, יתברך, ישתבח, יתפאר, יתמם, יסב, יתדר, ותלב, ותלל, שמי לקודשה, ויכול לילה מן כל ברכותיו ושורותיו, תשבחותיו ונחמת אדם אירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב אמין שמיה, בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום יממה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
נזמין את המנחמים לנחם את העבודה, ליציאתה בשני שורות. השבעה, בבית של שרה בערב, עד 10 בערב כל יום. תפילה,
7 בבוקר.
שחרית ב7 בבוקר ומנחה מערבית 5:40.
יום שישי מנחה ביום 4, 2 אחרי החצות. או גרויה 11 בשביל החיים. ניסה מצד ימין.